When my daughter's-in-law's mother hit my kitchen floor, everyone thought she was having a heart attack. Her eyes rolled back. Her body seized. Someone screamed for an ambulance. And as foam gathered at the corner of Irene's mouth, one very calm, very ugly thought cut through my 70-year-old brain. That poison was meant for me. I'm Margaret. I sold my company for $19.5 million. And 4 days later, somebody tried to kill me at my own retirement party. Before I tell you how I turned that murder plot inside out, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Because if you've got parents, kids, or a bank account, this story's a warning. 2 hours earlier, you'd have thought we were filming a commercial. My kitchen was glowing under rented-up lights, string quartet in the corner, catering trays, tidy napkins with my initials, champagne tower by the bay window. All this for a woman who still uses coupons and rinses out Ziploc bags. "Mom, you earned this," my son Daniel said, kissing my cheek. "You built something from scratch. Let us go over for it." His wife, Lauren, floated past with a tray of smoked salmon bites, smile as bright as the chandeliers. I told them no plastic cups. "You're getting real crystal tonight, Margaret." Lauren, who normally complained if she had to rinse a coffee mug, suddenly playing hostess like she'd been born with a clipboard. I should have known. 4 days earlier, I'd signed the papers. My logistics software company, born at this very kitchen table after my husband died, sold to a bigger fish. $19.5 million after taxes and legal. I'd gone from doing fine to featured in the business section in one afternoon. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since. "Margaret, it's fantastic. Margaret, any plans for all that money? Margaret, you must be so relieved." Relieved was the word. Exposed fell closer. The party filled up fast. Old clients, a few neighbors, my bridge partner, Daniel and Lauren's friends who suddenly remembered how much they adored me. I was mid-conversation with an ex-coworker when my eyes drifted toward the champagne station. That's when I saw it. Lauren stood with her back half turned to the room, head angled just enough to keep one eye on me. Her clutch sat open on the table beside the flutes. She reached in and pulled out a small brown bottle, the kind medicine or essential oils come in. Dropper top, dark glass, the sort that hides what's inside. My chest tightened up. She unscrewed the cap, glanced around, and tipped the bottle over one particular glass. Not just any glass, my glass. A flute with a faint crescent scratch near the base. Hard to see unless you knew it was there. I knew. I made that scratch myself years ago after I chipped it on the sink. It became a habit. At every gathering, I'd fill the base, find my glass, and use it. No one else ever noticed. Lauren did. Clear liquid fell into the champagne. She swirled the flute once, a little too carefully, then set the bottle back into her purse like she'd done it 100 times. My ears roared. The quartet of music, the hum of conversation, all of it blurred. "Margaret," my colleague said, "you okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. "Just taking it all in." I kept talking, kept nodding, but my focus had shrunk to that one glass on the linen-covered table. Lauren ticked it up a minute later, pasted on their best concern, smiled, and crossed the room. "Mom, you look like you need a break," she cooed. "First sip of the night to you." She held out the flute with the scratchy bass. I took it. If anyone had been watching closely, they'd have seen a 70-year-old woman smiling at her daughter-in-law being handed a drink. They would not have seen the way my fingers locked around the stem like I was holding a live grenade. "Thank you, sweetheart. You've done so much. This is beautiful." She glowed as a brave and turned away as she moved on to the next guest. I held the glass and counted to 10, then 20, then 30. Knowing there was poison in your hand does something strange to you. Part of you wants to throw it against the wall and scream. Another part of you, if you've spent 45 years negotiating with people who smile while they sharpen knives, knows panic is how you lose. So I waited, watched, listened. When Lauren got dizzy showing off her new tennis bracelet to my neighbor, I moved. I slipped through the cluster of guests, sat my flute on the edge of the drinks table, and picked up a fresh, clean glass. I waved the bartender over. "New bottle, please," I said. "Let me see you open it. Humor me." He laughed, popped the cork, poured. Behind me, I heard Irene's voice. "Do we got a refill station in heaven or just here?" She joked to no one in particular. Lauren's mother was what my mother would have called sweet but scattered. Shaky hands, mismatched earrings, always a little lost at big events. Lauren worried about her mascara. Irene worried about whether she left the stove on. "Oh, there's a glass right there," I said, nodding at the flute I just abandoned. "I haven't touched it. It's all yours if you want it." "Bless you," she said, scooping it up without a second glance. I lifted my new glass to my lips, let the bubbles kiss my mouth, and didn't drink. We toasted, people clinked, compliments flowed. 5 minutes later, I heard Irene say, "Well, that's an interesting flavor. Where'd you get this champagne, Margaret? Tastes almost medicinal." And then she dropped. The sound of crystal hitting tile is unmistakable. First the glass, then Irene. Her knees buckled, her eyes rolled white. She hit the floor hard enough that I felt it in my feet. Someone screamed. Someone shouted, "Call 911." The quartet stopped mid-song, one violin string hanging in the air like a question. I was already moving. I've never been a hysterical type. Not when my husband died at 54, not when my first big client pulled out, not when a banker once called to say an error had temporarily wiped my business account. I knelt beside Irene, 2 fingers to her neck, pulse there but rapid, breath shallow, foam gathering at the corners of her mouth. "Get me a dish towel," I snapped, at no one in particular. "Fold it. Don't put anything in her mouth. Turn her on her side, gently." Lauren dropped to her knees across from me, hands shaking so hard she nearly knocked into her mother. Mom, open your eyes. Somebody do something." "I am doing something. You, move back. Give the medics room when they get here." Her eyes flashed, anger or fear. I couldn't tell, but she scooted back, one hand over her mouth, mascara already smudging. Daniel pushed through the crowd. "Tail." "What happened?" he demanded, looking from Irene's contorted face to me. She collapsed, Seizure, foam, pupils blown. It's not a fainting spell. From what? He said, panicked. She was just talking. Did she eat anything unusual? Medication, allergies? One of the guests asked, an off-duty nurse. She had champagne, I said, from the first bottle. Daniel's gaze flickered toward the table. For one heartbeat, just one, I watched husband and wife lock eyes across the room. It lasted half a second, but once you know someone's playing a part, you start catching the glitches. The paramedics arrived in under 6 minutes. Sirens, boots, a stretcher. They took vitals, started oxygen, loaded Irene with practice efficiency. Which hospital? I asked. City General, one of them said. You family? Close enough, I replied. I'll follow. Mom, you don't have to go, Daniel blurted. We'll handle it. You should rest. We can clean up here. Here we go. You want me to stay home after someone nearly dies in my party? I said mildly. I'm old Daniel, not heartless. Color rose in his cheeks. I just meant you had a long day. I'll be fine. Get Lauren in the car. She looks like she's about to pass out next. She didn't got to pass out. She was terrified something had gone wrong. Emergency rooms make everyone look small. Harsh lights, hard chairs, the faint smell of disinfectant and fear. Lauren paced ruts into the linoleum, heels ticking like a metronome. Daniel sat rigid, elbows on his knees, phone buzzing unanswered in his hand. I sat a little apart where I could watch them and the nurse's station. A doctor in green scrubs finally approached. Family of Irene Carter? He asked. Lauren was on him in an instant. How is she? She gasped. Is she okay? Is she? She's stable, he said. We've moved her to intensive monitoring. We need to keep her overnight, maybe longer. What happened? I asked. He glanced between us, choosing his words. Her blood work shows signs of a plant-based toxin. Something in aconite family. Common names are wolfsbane, monkseed. It's not a medication. We're flushing her system and supporting her heart. Right now, she's holding her own. Poison? Lauren whispered. The doctor nodded slightly. Yes. We don't know what source she had. Did she ingest anything unusual before she collapsed? Tea? Herbal remedies? Unfamiliar foods? Daniel and Lauren both looked at me. I said she had champagne from my kitchen, from a bottle my daughter-in-law opened. The doctor scribbled something on his clipboard. We'll need the rest of that bottle, if there is any, for testing, and the glass if it's still intact. I'll bring it in tomorrow. I'll keep it cold until then. Lauren swamped toward me. Do you really think it was the champagne? She demanded. Everyone drank that champagne. Did they? I asked. I poured myself from the second bottle. You remember, don't you? I asked the bartender to open a new one in front of me. She blinked. Well, lots of people had some from the first bottle. If it was poisoned, wouldn't more of us be dead? Maybe not, I said. Depends on how it was dosed or who it was meant for. The doctor cleared his throat. We'll know more once we test. For now, get some rest. You can't see her yet. She's sedated. On the drive home, Daniel walked me to my car. Mom, maybe you shouldn't be alone tonight after all that. You're shaken, even if you're not showing it. I studied his face. He looked torn, genuinely upset about Irene, genuinely worried about me, and something else behind his eyes. Calculation. I said, "Thank you, but if anyone tries to finish whatever she started, I'd rather be in my own house with locks I paid for." His flinch was tiny, but real. Finish? What are you saying? Nothing you don't already suspect. Drive carefully, Daniel. I went home. I slid the original champagne bottle into a cooler bag, still mostly full. Evidence. Then I made a pot of coffee strong enough to keep a corpse awake and sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad. Time to do math.
Money tells stories if you let it. When my husband died 15 years ago, he left me a small house, 2 paid-off cars, and a little life insurance. Enough to survive, not enough to breathe easy. So I built something, contract by contract, upgrade by upgrade. I put Daniel through college, paid off the last of our debts, and gambled on myself. By the time I sold the company, people called me an overnight success. I was 69. I pulled old checkbooks and bank statements from a file box in my office. The box I told myself I kept for taxes, not because I don't trust digital. I started circling Daniel and Lauren's names every time they appeared. $15,000, help with closing costs on their first house. $8,000, credit card emergency. $12,000, private kindergarten for Lily. $5,000, unexpected car repair. $30,000, bridge loan when a client stiffed Daniel's farm. $10,000, wedding costs got away from us, Mom. $3,500, Lily's braces deposit. On and on. I added it all up twice just to be sure. $183,000 over 5 years. I never called any of it a loan. Always help. Always, what else is money for if not the family? It was a short slide from that to then thinking, what else is mom for if not to solve everything? At 7:30 a.m., my phone rang. Margaret? Lauren's voice, raw and raspy. I didn't wake you, did I? I've been waking up for hours, I said. How's your mother? The doctors think she'll pull through. They said it was some weird plant thing. Maybe she ate something or touched something and then touched her mouth. They were clear it wasn't food poisoning from last night. That's a relief, I said. I was worried it might have been something from the party. The champagne, maybe. I heard the faintest hitch in her breathing. Champagne? She repeated. Why would you think that? Well, she only had a few sips before he went down, and I still have the bottle. The doctor seemed keen on testing it, so I thought, the doctor? She cut in quickly. He said that it might have been the champagne? I said they needed to test it. Standard procedure, I'm sure. You know how hospitals are. They're always overreacting, talking about liability. I really don't think you need to. Better safe than sorry, I said. You'd feel terrible if anyone else got sick. Silence. Right, she says finally. Well, of course. What do we think is best? After we hung up, I stared at the champagne bottle in my fridge. It stared back, perfectly innocent. We were both lying.
Paul Avery's office smelled like leather and old paper. He had been my attorney since Daniel was old enough to eat crayons. Divorce proceedings for other people, contracts for me, the occasional strongly worded letter to men who thought woman-owned business meant easy target. He listened without interrupting as I laid it all out. The brown bottle, the scratched glass, the switch, the fall hole, the plant toxin, the doctor's warning, the uneasy look between my son and his wife. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "In all our years together, Margaret," he said, "you have never once come to me with anything dull." "I tried to keep things interesting," I said. He gave me a look. "Let's be perfectly clear. If what you're describing is accurate, your daughter-in-law attempted to poison you." "Attempted," I said, "and almost succeeded. She just managed to nearly kill the wrong woman." He winced. "And you're sure about the glass switch?" "I scratched that flute myself. I saw her doctor it. I handed it to Irene. I've been replaying that decision all night." His eyes sharpened. "Margaret, I need to ask this as your attorney. Did you know it would be deadly?" I knew it wasn't vitamins, but no, I didn't know what it was. I didn't think it would drop someone in minutes. I thought, stupidly, that whatever she'd done would make me sick, not that. I swallowed. "I will be apologizing for that until the day I die," I added quietly. "But if I hadn't proved what she was willing to do, we might both be dead next time, or it's someone else." He nodded slowly. "Intent matters," he said, "and so does what you do next." He leaned back. "From a criminal perspective, we need evidence. That bottle, the lab results, your testimony. Irene's, if she remembers anything. And from a non-criminal perspective," I asked, "from the perspective of rich widowed over 70 living alone," he said dryly, "we need to assume this won't be the last play for your assets." He pulled a folder from his drawer. "Have you heard of guardianship abuse?" I said some. I watched that documentary. Woman lost everything because someone decided she couldn't manage anymore. "It's more common than you think," he said. "Adult children, professional guardians, even neighbors. All it takes is a cooperative doctor and a judge with too many cases. If Daniel and Lauren can show a pattern of confusion or poor decisions, we can argue you need help, a guardian. Once that's in place, your choices become suggestions. I didn't survive 3 recessions to be put in timeout. Then we put up fences. First, we document your current capacity, a full cognitive workup. You're sharp, so let's get that on record. Second, we build what I call an anti-greed system. If anyone tries to grab legal control of you, they lose financially. How? Right now, your will gives Daniel everything. We changed that. You leave him a modest but stable income protecting interest so he can't blow it. You leave Lauren nothing. And we put language in your trust that says, if a court ever removes your decision-making rights without the sign-off of 2 independent doctors you selected, your estate skips Daniel entirely, straight to charity. So if they try to declare me incompetent, they disinherit themselves. Exactly. We can't stop them scheming, but we can make sure they can't profit from it." And the police? I asked. That depends on what the hospital says about that bottle. Once we have confirmation of poison, I'll introduce you to someone in the elder abuse unit. They're more used to this kind of family creativity. He slid a sheet of paper towards me. In the meantime, I'd also invest in security. Cameras, panic system. You're not being paranoid. My husband always said that. If they really are out to get you, it's not paranoia.
By the next afternoon, my home looked upgraded. Discreet black domes over the front and back doors, slim white sensors on every window, a smart panel by my bed with a fat red button the alarm company called an oh-no switch I called my oh-no switch. I thought porch pirates were bad where we live, my neighbor said, watching the installers leave. Apparently, they started stealing old ladies, I replied. At 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang again. Daniel and Lauren. I watched them through the camera feed for a second. He looked tense, jaw tight. She looked perfectly put together, if a little paler than usual. Her hair was blow-dried into submission. Her shirt didn't have a wrinkle, but the skin around her eyes did. "Mom, you got cameras," Daniel said as I opened the door. "That's new. Package theft and peace of mind." "That's exactly what we wanted to talk to you about," Lauren said, gliding into the living room like she was on a real estate show. "Your peace of mind." She perched on the edge of the sofa. Daniel sat beside her, hands clasped. "Irene's stare really shook us," she began. "It made us realize how fast things can happen when you're older." There it was again. Older, said like a diagnosis. "At 70, you shouldn't be dealing with all this. Security systems, doctors, managing $19 million. It's a lot, Mom." "Is it?" I asked. "I managed a staff of 80 and a fleet of trucks. A couple of zeros and a bank account don't scare me." Lauren gave a soft laugh. "Of course, you're amazing. But no one can outrun time, Margaret," she said. "We've been talking, and we think it might be time to look at options." "Options like what?" I asked, even though I already knew. She pulled out her tablet, swiped, and turned the screen toward me. "Silver Pines. It's not a nursing home. It's an active lifestyle community for people your age. Golf course, art classes, spa, medical staff on site. It's practically a resort." Smiling seniors filled the screen, doing water aerobics and painting landscapes. "And the catch?" I asked. Daniel cleared his throat. "There's an entrance contribution, about $450,000. But after that, everything's covered. Housing, health care, and if when you're gone, it's refundable to your estate." "How generous," I said. "And why are we having this conversation now exactly?" "Because we're worried about your safety," Lauren said. "You saw what happened to my mom. What if that had been you alone in this house?" "She collapsed in a room full of 30 people. She had an ambulance in under 10 minutes. That's not exactly an advertisement for constant supervision."
It's not just bad. Then you're pushed. Break-in and scammers. You think targeted because of this sale. Silver Pine requires every resident to have a designated power of attorney. Someone younger, someone who can handle the complicated stuff. We thought maybe you could be that someone, I said, watching his face. He smiled, relief flickering across his features. It'd be temporary, really. You'd still be in control. We'd just be there to catch anything you miss. I looked from my son to his wife. If I hadn't seen that brown bottle, if I hadn't watched them at the hospital, this might have sounded like love. Instead, it sounded like step 2. I'll think about it, I said. It's a big decision. The unit they have open won't last, Lawrence said quickly. They said they can hold it through Friday. Maybe you could decide by then. Friday, I repeated. Noted. After they left, I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door. They thought they were lining up my future. I was lining up witnesses. Nina, I said when my investigator picked up, I need you to turn those corporate espionage skills on my own family.
40 hours later, Nina's report hit my inbox with a soft ding. Her cover email was short. Subject, you were right to be suspicious. Check sections 3, 5, and 9. I made tea, put on my reading glasses, and opened the file. I didn't make it past section 3 before I started cursing under my breath. The Westbrook house, 2 mortgages, and a maxed home equity line. Little equity, lots of risk. Daniel's architecture firm, operating at a loss for 18 months, propped up by short-term loans and my help. Credit cards, 6 open accounts. Total balance, $87,000. Minimums barely met. Personal loans, 3, all delinquent. Section 5 was worst. Regular payments, small but steady, going to someone named Dr. Leonard Levin, board-certified psychiatrist specializing in geriatric assessments. His website tagline, printed neatly in the report, made my stomach turn. Helping families make tough decisions about aging loved ones. Same doctor Paul had mentioned when he warned me about accommodating evaluations. Section 9 froze me. Life insurance, the header read. 6 months ago, Lauren Carter had taken out a life insurance policy on me. Face amount, $500,000. Policy owner, Lauren Carter. Beneficiary, Lauren Carter. She had listed herself as primary caregiver and daughter-in-law. Charming. I called Paul. I said, we have our motive and our timetable. He swore softly. He said, I'll make an introduction. You're ready to talk to the police now.
Detective Sarah Ortiz met me in a small, windowless interview room at the precinct. She wore a blazer over a plain shirt, hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun. No coffee, no small talk. Miss Lane, she said, I handle financial exploitation and elder abuse cases. Your attorney sent me the basics. I'd like to hear it in your own words. I told her everything. Again. In order. The brown bottle. The glass switch. Irene on the floor. The hospital's plat toxin report. The insurance policy. Nina's debt dossier, the Silver Pines pitch, Dr. Levin's payments. She didn't interrupt, didn't suggest I might be confused. When I finished, she flipped through her notes. First, the poisoning. You still have the original bottle in my fridge, I said, wrapped and untouched. We'll need that, she said, along with any glasses you still have from that night. If lab finds aconitinine in the champagne and it matches what the hospital found in Irene's blood, that gives us a solid base to work from. And the insurance? I asked. Insurance plus poison is a classic combination, she said. Juries understand money. They don't always understand plant science, but they understand a $500,000 payout on a dead mother-in-law. What about the guardianship angle? Ortiz's mouth tightened. I've seen it. Family members using doctors to fabricate or exaggerate cognitive decline to get control of assets aren't to prosecute unless they get greedy. Your daughter-in-law got greedy. And sloppy, I said. That helps, she agreed, that you need to understand something. Once we move on this, it's not a family squabble anymore. It's the state versus your relatives. You don't get to back out because someone cries on the witness stand. I'm not the one who should cry, I said. I'm the one who almost drank it. She nodded once. In that case, here's what I suggest. We get the bottle tested today. In the meantime, your son and daughter-in-law think Friday is the big day for the retirement home paperwork, right? They do. If lab confirms poison before then, we'll schedule a visit to your house for Friday morning. You hand them the pen. We hand them the handcuffs. Can I bring popcorn? I asked. She almost smiled. I'll also advise you do exactly what your attorney suggested. Get an independent cognitive evaluation. If this goes to court, the defense will try to paint you as confused or vindictive. A clean bill of mental health from someone we trust makes that a lot harder. Which is how I ended up on Wednesday afternoon sitting in a soft chair across from a gentleman named Dr. Shaw. He asked what day it was. We did word lists. We did number patterns. He asked me to draw a clock, but the hand set to 11:10. He said most of his patients are brought in by their children. It's refreshing to see someone taking the initiative. I said, being old doesn't mean being stupid, nor does it mean being safe, he replied. We've been seeing more of these exploitation cases. People that swim in gray hair means open season. He signed his report in front of me. Miss Wang is fully oriented and shows no signs of dementia and is capable of managing her own affairs. You can quote me. I plan to.
On Thursday, I invited Daniel to lunch at our old spot, a little Italian place where we'd celebrated his high school graduation and his first job offer. He arrived 10 minutes late, looking like he hadn't slept. Sorry, he said, sliding into the booth. Client call ran over. When they're paying you, they're allowed, I said. We ordered, chatted about safe things, weather, traffic, the bread. Halfway through the main course, I set down my fork. I've been thinking about what you and Lauren said, about Silver Pines, about power of attorney. His eyes flicked up, hope lighting his face. And, he asked, and I think you're right about one thing, I said. Planning ahead beats waiting for a crisis. I don't want some stranger making decisions for me if I get hit by a bus. He exhaled. So
Does that mean... It means that if I do this, it'll be with my eyes open, on my terms. I'll sign the Silver Pines papers and the power of attorney tomorrow, here in my house, with my lawyer present. His relief was almost painful to watch. Mom, that's good, he said. You won't regret it. And once you see the place, you'll love it. Oh, I've seen the photos, I said. They make old age look like a cruise. He smiled. Pretty much. Just one thing, I added casually. Have you been meeting with a Dr. Leonard Levin? The question hit him like cold water. What? He said too quickly. Why would you ask that? Because my investigator is very good at following money, and she found regular payments to him from your accounts, starting months before you ever brought up Silver Pines. He stared at the tablecloth. Lauren said we should have a plan D in case he refused. She said Levitt just evaluates. Then if there were signs you weren't, keeping track like you used to, it'd be better to know for your sake. For my sake, I repeated. So she paid a doctor to be ready to call me incompetent if I didn't sign? He didn't answer. Daniel, do you really think I can't see the difference between help and a hostile takeover? He pressed his palms into his eyes. I didn't think it would go this far, he whispered. I thought we'd persuade you with the party, with the scare, that it'd be enough. The scare? You mean the event when your mother-in-law almost died on my floor? His shoulders shook. I thought she meant a break-in or hires someone to call you pretending to be from the bank. Something to show you how vulnerable you are. I didn't think she'd... He broke off, swallowing hard. I watched him for a long moment. I believe you didn't know about the poison, I said. I don't forgive you for everything else, but I believe that. He looked up, eyes red. Does that matter? It will. To me and to the police.
Friday morning dawned with low clouds and drizzle that made the sidewalks shine. I put on a navy sweater, the one my husband used to say made me look like I meant business, made coffee, set out 3 mugs, laid the Silver Pines brochures neatly on the table beside the legal envelope Paul had curried over. The champagne bottle was gone. Ortiz's team had picked it up Wednesday. She'd called Thursday night to confirm. Aconitin, she said. Concentrated, it matches what they found in Irene's system. We'll see you at 9:30. At 9 sharp, Daniel and Lauren rang the bell. I watched them on the camera, her adjusting her blouse, him smoothing his hair. They looked like they were about to walk into a bank, not their victim's home. I opened the door. Wow, Lauren said, stepping inside. You look so calm. I'd be a wreck making such a big decision. I've made bigger, I said. Start the coffee, Daniel. Papers on the table. We sat. Lauren opened her leather folder like it was a treasure chest. These are the residency contracts, she said, sliding a stack toward me. This is the financial disclosure, and this... She held up another document. This is the power of attorney. It just gives Daniel authority to handle things if you can't. This is standard for these communities. I flipped through the pages. I read every word the night before. So had Paul. The one in front of me now, though, was not the version Lauren thought it was. Paul's team had recreated the layout perfectly. Same fonts, same headings, but with one key difference.
Every reference to all assets and all accounts had been replaced with the account number of a single tiny checking account I opened that week. Balance $1. "Looks very official," I said, uncapping my pen. "Tell me when to stop signing." Lauren laughed. "Here, here, and here," she said, tapping the lines. I signed slowly, deliberately. "Are you sure you don't want Daniel to talk you through the clauses? Some of the language can be confusing." "Sweetheart," I said, "I spent 20 years reading vendor contracts written by men who thought a complicated sentence could hide a bad deal. If this says secretly sell me for parts, Paul will have a stroke when he gets here." Daniel's phone buzzed. He ignored it. "You said he was coming?" he asked. "He wanted to make sure we don't trigger any weird tax issues. You know how lawyers are. See ghosts in every comma." Lauren's laughter sounded forced. "Well, the sooner he gets here, the sooner we can send these to Silver Pines." She tucked the signed papers into her folder. Her fingers lingered on the leather like it was already hers. The doorbell rang. "Speak of the devil," I said. "Daniel, would you mind?" He walked to the door, opened it, and stopped. "Miss Lane?" Detective Ortiz said on the porch. "Good morning, Mr. Lane. Miss Carter, may we come in?" Lauren's face went a color I'd only seen on hospital scrubs. "What's going on?" Daniel asked, though he already knew. Ortiz stepped inside, badge visible at her belt, another plainclothes officer carrying within evidence case. "We received lab results on the champagne Miss Lane gave us. It contained a dangerous concentration of aconitine, the same toxin in Irene's system." "That doesn't prove anything," Lauren snapped. "Someone could have tampered with it after the party. Anyone had access, including the person who brought it from the table to Miss Lane. The bartender remembers only one person handling that bottle and a single glass before it went back to the table. You." "That's ridiculous. Why would I poison my own mother?" "That," Ortiz said, "is exactly what we are wondering, especially since we've also obtained this." She pulled a folded document from her folder and opened it. "A life insurance policy on Margaret Lane. $500,000. Owner and sole beneficiary, Lauren Carter. Taken out 6 months ago, shortly after Margaret's company entered negotiations for sale." I watched Daniel's face crumble as he read his wife's name on the page. "You took a policy out on my mother?" he whispered. "Lots of families do that," Lauren snarled. "It's responsible. If something had happened to her, who do you think would be arranging the funeral, picking up the pieces?" "I do believe that was the point," I said dryly. "Ms. Lane," Ortiz said, "would you like to tell them what you told me about the glass?" I met Lauren's eyes. "I saw you pour something into my usual flute," I said, "from a brown dropper bottle you took out of your purse. I watched you bring that glass to me. I watched you tell me I looked tired and needed champagne. I switched it when your back was turned. Irene drank it instead." "That's insane. You're making that up." "I am many things," I said. "A liar is not one of them." Irene's voice echoed in my memory. I saw her too. "We also have your mother's statement," Ortiz said. She remembers the champagne tasting bitter. She remembers you handling a small bottle by the bar before the toast, combined with the lab work, the insurance policy, and Miss Lang's account. She stepped closer. "Lauren Carter," she said, voice crisp. "You are arrested for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult." The other officer stepped forward with cuffs ready. "You can't do this," she hissed. "Daniel, say something. She's manipulating them. She's old. She doesn't even remember things right." "Funny," I said. "Dr. Shah's report says the opposite. Full capacity, no dementia, stronger recall than most 50-year-olds. Ortiz nodded. "And we'll be happy to show that to your friend Dr. Levin when we interview him about those consultation payments." "The what?" Daniel croaked. She glanced at him. "Your bank statements show regular payments to Dr. Leonard Levin, specialist in geriatric competence evaluations. I'm sure he'll be able to tell us what kind of outcome you were hoping to buy." Lauren spun on Daniel. "You told them?" she hissed. "I didn't have to," I said. "You left a trail you could see from space." The cuffs clicked around her wrist. "You haven't heard the last of me," she spat. "You've destroyed your own son's life, Margaret." "No," I said quietly. "You did. I just made sure you didn't take mine with you."
After they took Lauren, Ortiz asked Daniel to come down to the station voluntarily. He went. I went too, with Paul. He sat across from us in another windowless room, pale and shaking, the kind of man who suddenly realizes he's not in control of the story anymore. "I didn't know about the poison," he said for the 100th time. "I swear I never would have." "I believe you," I said, "about that part. The rest, you're going to have to own." Paul slid the printed text messages across the table. "Let's go through these," he said. Lauren, Silver Pines says they need POA on file before admission. Daniel, she won't sign if she thinks we're after her money. Lauren, that's what Levin is for. Confusion episodes plus evaluation equals guardianship. We do this once before she gets worse. Another, Lauren, party will be step 1. Big group, lots of stress. Perfect environment for a memory lapse or panic. Daniel, you really think that'll be enough to convince her? Lauren, by Monday she'll be begging us to take care of everything. Daniel stared at the pages like they might rearrange themselves into something less damning. I told myself she meant scare tactics, staged stuff, not murder. Self-deception is still deception, especially when you cash in on it. He flinched at that. Ortiz leaned forward. "Mr. Lane, here's where we are. We have enough to charge you with conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. We can probably tie you into the attempted murder as well. Or you can cooperate fully on the guardianship plan, on Dr. Levin, on what your wife was saying behind closed doors. That won't erase what you did, but it will affect how this ends." He looked at me. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I want you to tell the truth for once," I said. So he did. He told them about the late-night arguments, the mounting debt, the way every month felt like a cliff. He told them about how Lauren had started talking about my money as inevitable, like weather, how she called it
stupid for me to be sitting on that much capital at your age. He told them about the first meeting with Dr. Levin, about the way the man had said, "These cases are so sad. Sometimes we have to protect people from themselves," while he slid his rate sheet across the desk. He told them about the life insurance, how Lauren had framed it as responsible planning. He did not tell them, because he didn't have to, that he'd been perfectly willing to benefit from my death, as long as it looked natural.
True crime documentaries like to skip the court stuff. I won't. Because sitting in a courtroom while your daughter-in-law is tried for attempted murder and your son sits at the defense table in a suit that doesn't quite fit, that changes you. The trial took 8 days. The prosecutor walked the jury through the poisoned champagne, the hospital reports, the insurance policy, the debts, the guardianship plan. They played recordings of jail calls where Lauren alternated between crying about losing everything and complaining that Margaret did this to herself, flaunting all that money. Irene testified. "She saw my daughter by the bar with a little brown bottle," she said, voice steady. "I thought she'd brought her own drops like I do with peppermint. After what happened, I realized it wasn't peppermint." She glanced at me on her way back to her seat. I saw steel in her spine that hadn't been there before. I testified too. I told them about the glass, the scratch, the switch. I told them about waking up at 3 a.m., replaying Irene's fall on an endless loop, wondering if I'd traded one life for another. The defense tried to paint me as vindictive, as paranoid after a big financial change. They hinted that Irene's memory might be confabulated from hospital suggestions. Then the prosecutor called Dr. Shaw to the stand and had him read his assessment of my cognition into the record. "Miss Lane is fully oriented, shows no evidence of dementia, and demonstrates high executive functioning. In plain language, she knows exactly what's going on." They called Ortiz. She explained the money trail, the patterns she'd seen in other elder abuse cases. Greed and entitlement don't care about bloodlines. In fact, they often hide behind them. Daniel took the stand as part of his plea agreement. He looked smaller up there. "I thought we were planning for the future," he said. "I told myself that, but the truth is, when you're drowning in bills, it's easy to look at someone else's lifeboat and decide it should be yours." "Did you know your wife planned to poison your mother?" the prosecutor asked. "No," he said, voice breaking. "I knew she planned to scare her, to stage incidents, to get a doctor to say she couldn't live alone. I didn't stop that. I didn't want to stop it. That's on me." When it was time for victim impact statements, Irene went first. "I almost died because my daughter decided murder was easier than working. That changes how you look at family." Then it was my turn. "I built my business one small contract at a time. I got up at 4 in the morning to schedule deliveries. I went home at 8 at night and cooked dinner. I didn't climb all the way to retirement just to be shunned off a cliff by someone who thinks 70 means done." I looked at Lauren. I said, "You didn't just poison a glass. You poisoned my son's marriage.
My granddaughter's childhood, your own mother's trust. That's a lot of collateral damage for $500,000 and a house you couldn't afford. The judge listened. The gallery was silent enough to hear a pin drop. When she finally spoke, her voice was cool and clear. Miss Carter, she said, I have sentenced strangers for less. What sets your crime apart is its intimacy. You attacked not just a person, but a relationship. A mother-in-law, a grandmother, a mother. You tried to turn love into a weapon and profit from the wound. She turned to my son. Mr. Lane, she said, you stood by, eyes half closed, and told yourself stories so you could sleep. You didn't mix the poison. You did something more cowardly. You looked away as long as you stood to benefit. In the end, the verdicts were what we expected. Guilty on attempted murder. Guilty on insurance fraud. Guilty on attempted financial exploitation. Lauren got 14 years. Daniel got 3. Neither sentence brought back the world as it had been. But it did something important. It told the world that what happened to me was a crime, not a family misunderstanding.
3 months after the sentencing, I was deadheading roses in the backyard when my phone buzzed. Grandma? Lily's voice was small and shaky. Can I come over for a while? She was 16, old enough to drive, old enough to have classmates whisper, "That's the girl whose mom tried to kill her grandma," behind her back. Of course, I said. I'll put the kettle on. She arrived with a backpack and a face that looked too old and too young all at once. We sat in the kitchen table. Same table, different world. Mom says you ruined our family, she blurted, staring at her mug. She says if you'd just been generous, none of this would have happened. So it's my fault for not dying on schedule? I asked. She flinched. I don't think that, she said quickly. I don't know what to think. They're my parents, but also I read a text they showed in court. I heard what they said. It's like they were 2 different people. They weren't, I said gently. That's the hardest part. They're the same people who tucked you in and drove you to soccer. And they're the people who thought destroying my life was an acceptable solution to their problems. Both are true. Her eyes filled. Are you mad at me? She whispered. For being their kid? At you? I shook my head. Lily, you didn't mix the poison. You didn't take the policy. You didn't hire the doctor. You were allowed to be horrified without being guilty. I feel guilty anyway. Like if I'd noticed something sooner or told a teacher or... She trailed off. Guilt is cheap. Responsibility is expensive. Your responsibility now is simple. Learn from this. Be better. Choose differently.
She sniffed. How? Start by seeing where the lines are. Love doesn't mean covering up crimes. Loyalty doesn't mean letting someone hurt you because they share your last name. She thought about that. Do you still love Dad? Yes. Yes. Even after all this? Especially after. Because love is stubborn. I don't trust him. I don't want him near my bank accounts or my legal documents. But the part of me that rocked him when he was a baby, that doesn't vanish because he made terrible, selfish choices as a man. That's confusing, she said. Welcome to adulthood. We spent the weekend making lasagna, watching old movies, and between scenes talking about her future. I've been thinking maybe law, she said, half embarrassed. Like that detective or the prosecutor. They were terrifying, but also kind of amazing. I think that's an excellent idea. We're going to need a lot more people who understand what happened here and why it's not okay.
It's been a year now. I still live in my brick house. The cameras are part of the wallpaper. I hardly notice them anymore. Irene and I have coffee twice a week. We joke that we survived the same murder plot and ended up with better boundaries. Sometimes we sit at my table with my till organizers and make fun of ourselves. Remember when I almost died because your daughter couldn't do basic math, she'll say. 500,000 divided by 14 years isn't that much per year, I'll answer. She should have just gotten a job. Daniel calls sometimes from the low-security facility where he served in his time. We talk about safe things, the weather, books, Lily's grades. He always ends with, I'm sorry, Mom. I always end with, I know. Be better when you get out. I don't know yet what our relationship will look like in 10 years. I do know this. I'd rather have a complicated relationship with a living son than a grave and a bank account someone else spends. Once a month, I go to the community center and talk to seniors about money and helpful family members. We sit in a circle with bad coffee and styrofoam cups, and I say, you're not paranoid, you're paying attention. I tell them about the brown bottle, about the scratched glass, about the life insurance policy I never asked for. I tell them the same thing I'm telling you. People hear my story and they say, I could never do what you did. I could never call the police on my own family. Here's the truth. You don't know what you can do until the poison is in your hand. You don't know who you are until you watch someone you love calculate how much you're worth dead. So if you're watching this and you're over 50, or you have parents who are, here's what I want you to take away. Put your name back on your accounts. Read every document before you signed, even if your son says, let's just stand it. Be very wary of anyone who says, for your own good, and power of attorney in the same sentence. And if the people pushing the hardest stand to gain the most,
Slow everything down. You can love your children. You can adore your in-laws. You don't not owe them your safety, your sanity, or your signature. They can still have your loss. They just can't have your retirement. If this hit a little too close to home, you're not alone. Drop "I'm protected myself" in the comments so I know you're out there paying attention. And if you live through something like this, family pressure about money, guardianship threats, you're getting old, let us handle it. Tell your story. Someone else needs to hear it. I'm Margaret. I'm 70. Someone tried to write an ending for me. They forgot I still hold the pen, and I am not done fighting yet.